wretched bandicoot foiled my plan for this amusement enterprise as the ideal strategic cover.
Yes, my lord.
Stop having fun.
Why are we still here? Just to suffer?
Alright guys, listen up. Can Crash Tag Team Racing be the dominant Crash racer of the trio? Or should I say, Brio? Hello everyone and welcome back to GameTalk, where we talk about games, new and old. And today, my friends, is a special day. Because today we are covering the last Crash racer in the trio. And it would be hard to top the previous two because CTTR was one of the biggest splooges a franchise could ever put out. I'm so sorry. But it's true. Crash Tag Team Racing. A very infamous game by this point, and definitely a huge step in another direction for Crash, as this game is not like Crash Team Racing and Nitro Kart. I'll explain why in the video eventually, but if you were expecting a similar kart racer like the previous two videos, you'll be surprised. At this point, the Crash series had been thrown around from developer to developer. Eurocom and Crash Bash started this phenomenon, Vicarious Visions took over with Nitro Kart and the GBA titles, and Traveler's Tales, the year before Crash Tag Team Racing, created the infamous Crash Twinsanity. So the Crash series experienced some multiculturalism with all these different developers doing their take on Crash. Radical Entertainment created Crash Tag Team Racing and is definitely a mixed opinionated game. You either love it or hate it. And this was one of the first games I have ever played. I haven't played it since I was a fetus, but I do remember loving this game when I played it on Xbox, and I remember it being one of my favorite games. But at the same time, I don't really remember it. I remember some aspects of it, but when replaying it, I bet all the nostalgia and all the memories would come back to me. So let's give this game a crack and find out if it's good or not. By the way, this game doesn't work well on emulators. So my first thought was to just hook up my Elgato to the PS2, and it looked like a dropped fucking pie. So I'm going to be playing on the GameCube version for quality purposes. So again, plot. It definitely has more thought put into it this time and became a somewhat priority here. Unfortunately, it doesn't have a cool introduction to the game like CTR where the characters would come out the box or Nitro Kart where they're racing in space. It shows a shitty montage of gameplay and that's about it. Disappointing, but whatever, I won't judge it. So the plot once again is stupid. But tell me once where the plot of Crash wasn't stupid. So a place called Von Clutch's Motor World is closing and someone stole the park's power gems. And whoever wins the races and finds Von Clutch's black power gem gets the deed to the theme park. That's what I gathered from the plot. It was pretty hard to follow, honestly. Crash, Coco, and Crunch hear about this and are heading to the park, while Cortex and Jin and Nina Cortex, Cortex's niece, are chasing after them. Sorry if I left out any details because this plot is extremely hard to follow as it seems very unorganized. Okay, let's get into this game already. I really don't care about the plot. Yes, this is coming back to me now. My name? Crank. What? It's like Crash, and with Dank, and my name is Dank. Ah, that was fucking dreadful. Okay, when starting up, there is a huge problem. Think about when you play a game like Mario Kart, or as a matter of fact, Crash Team Racing. The first thing you want to do is hop right into the racing, into the arcade mode, and have a blast. You don't care about any adventure mode or story mode, you just want to race. Here, that's not the case. You cannot race when starting up the game because every character and every race is locked. Are you fucking kidding me? Sure, whatever, I can play the adventure mode, but the thing is, you unlock the races one at a time. Is this some sort of joke? Most people would not have the patience for this, and I would say so myself in some way. Because my patience is about as strong as my sanity after playing that Little Britain game. Which is not very strong because I wanted to flush myself down the toilet after playing that monstrosity. And knowing the horrible attention span of people nowadays, a lot of people might not hook onto this game very well when revisiting it. This is pretty unacceptable, but fine. We'll get into adventure mode. This is where another flaw of the game arises. And it wouldn't be a flaw if it wasn't executed this horribly. This isn't just a racing game, unlike from what the title tells ya. It's also a platformer, and by itself, it isn't that bad. It's a new take on the hub world from the previous two games, where now instead of driving to different locations, you walk there and perform basic platforming challenges and receiving items. This platforming uses the 3D Twinsanity style with double jumping and super tornado spins, which I actually don't mind. The bad thing about it is, 1, it takes you ages for you to get to point A to point B, making the CTR and CNK hub world a lot more efficient and faster. But with this coin system, they kinda had to use platforming. I'll explain what the coin system does eventually in this video, you impatient bastard. 2, there's barely any challenge, creativity, or uniqueness to the platforming. 3, lives don't exist. What? So you can die over and over and over again and it wouldn't change a fucking thing. 4, the people walking around have the worst and scariest character models on the PS2. I expect these things to come out of Silent Hill, not Crash Bandicoot. 5, you can only play as Crash in the platforming sections, But in the races, you're free to choose whoever you want. And it's not like CTR and CNK where you choose who you want to play as. No, in each race, you pick whoever you want. This does not make any sense because even if you play as Cortex the whole time, it doesn't change the story in any way. 6. You unlock the characters by buying their cars with coins or different items, basically helping out the villains. Yeah, Crash is a bit of a fuckhead, but I don't think he's dumb enough to help out the villains to get to the deed of the park, especially with all the previous encounters he's had with them, and he's the one trying to get the deed in the first place. Nothing makes sense and everything's just executed horribly. Why does Crash have to go through so much effort to buy cars for everyone else while they just sit on their asses? The only thing that's coming back to me so far is the coin grabbing sound. That's it. The racing better do this game justice because so far the game's a bit stupid. The racing is a bit weird. This is why in my nitro-fueled marathon announcement video I explained that this wasn't really a kart racer. Not because of the platforming, but because of the races themselves. The movement doesn't have much variety in a chaotic feel like the first 2 Crash kart races. There's no hopping off ledges to boost or manual boosting like CNK and CDR had. That really sucks because those who were good at the game were rewarded with this manual boosting system. It feels like a generic racer with Crash characters. And you're probably wondering what the tag team aspect is. It's odd, but there's a feature called merging, where you would merge cars with another person without the consent. Bit of red flags if you ask me. And when you merge, one person drives and the other jumps on a turret on the back, shooting the drivers that come across, making the power-ups you find at the track quite scarce. This aspect was alright in theory, but again, wasn't executed well. And I'll tell you why. Because it's the most exploitable thing in any video game ever. You can cheddar cheese the fuck out of this game by using my technique called blow everyone up using engine and snake the person you're merging with. Trademark. Step 1. Player's engine. Merely because he has a missile launcher more powerful than any of the other weapons like Crash's Wumpa launcher and Crunch's minigun. This will 9 times out of 10 one-shot everyone on the track. If you don't want to play as engine, fine, play as anyone you want, but find engine on the track and merge with him. Step 2. So you and your teammate are just cruising along the track, blowing up every poor bastard behind you, and on the final lap towards the finish line, be an absolute dick and snake your teammate by unmerging and getting the boost towards the end, letting your poor bastard teammate come second. This game is the definition of cheese. If there was a timer on the merging, it would be a lot fairer, but you could be an asshole and unmerge whenever you want. And there is ammo, but if you unmerge and merge again, the ammo resets. What the fuck? That's like eating a bowl of cereal, going to the bathroom to take a shit, going back to the bowl and the cereal's back in there. The tag team aspect sounds alright on paper, but again, the execution was horrible and is the most exploitable thing intended to be in the game. You could probably argue that the illegal shortcuts and the hidden techniques such as Sacred Fire and CTR are also exploitable, and that is true, but for those you have to be really damn good at the game and master the game perfectly. Like me good. I'm great. And even then you still might not be able to perform these. In tag team racing, anyone could do this. The game is so easy. And this is probably why I loved this game when I was younger, because it's just so easy. The racing is fun, I guess, but then again, the merging system is so repetitive and gets a bit boring after a while. But I will admit, it is pretty satisfying to dominate the whole racetrack and snake the teammate at the end. After a while, you get the gimmick and you get what this game can do, but there's literally no boosting and no strategy in this game. Or unless you count my engine feta cheese strategy. This makes the game be really repetitive. Speaking of repetitive, the tracks are basically identical. There's no uniqueness to them, no leaps of faith, no incredibly risky shortcuts, no whatever the fuck Hyperspaceway is laid out to be. They're also basic, and some tracks have elements that make it somewhat cool, but that's only for a couple tracks, and the track names are pretty horrendous. Pyramid Pass, seriously, Papu's Pyramid and Polar Pass, just combining them both. Couldn't think of anything else for a name, eh? Deep Sea Driving, that is literally a name from a track in Nitro Kart. Uranus jokes. Not looking promising so far, I must say. Alongside the regular races, there are actually a multitude of races to choose from. A regular race, which I explained already, a race called Crashinator, where you have to hit all the items on the track in a short amount of time. Challenging, but gets repetitive after a while. Fast Lap, where you have to do one lap around the track and beat a specific time. Kinda like the Relic races, but without the boxes and in one lap, and honestly lacks much challenge. Overall, an extremely boring and uneventful mode. Run and Gun, which is actually pretty challenging. You play as Crunch Bandicoot using his minigun and get driven around the track in one lap, where you have to shoot all the targets that come by. Trying to get all the targets is as challenging as... what's a hard game? Oh yes, Crash Souls. And my personal favorite, Rolling Thunder. I like to call this mode PFC. And what does that stand for? Pure fucking carnage. It's funny because carnage, car, Nage. Shut your fucking mouth! You can choose to play as whoever you want for this mode, but trust me, you want to play as Engine. In this mode, you will get driven around the track in one lap and have to get much car takedowns as possible, and all the cars bunch up together and you get the most satisfying collateral damage in gaming since...
And that was my triple collateral on free-for-all.
Something about this game that I find really cool is the battle mode. This game's battle mode is way better than CTR or C&K's battle mode. One reason because of the turret system and teams of 2 mainly, but in the previous Crash races, you would have to split screen in order to play the battle mode. But here you could do that, or you can play by yourself and play against bots. This is really cool because if you're a loner and you have no friends or no one to support you because you're a miserable bastard, you can still play. That went real dark real fast. There's also a new mode which is stunt mode. You get a certain amount of time on an arena to do flips, turns and get airtime to receive points. A cool mode that adds a bit of extra content, but there aren't really a lot of stunts to do, and there aren't a lot of arenas. There are also various mini games you can do, such as bowling and shooting shit, which is just, honestly, extra content. It's pretty shit. Okay, the characters of this game. There's 8. Seriously. CTR had 15. C&K had 16. CTTR has 8. Is this some sort of joke? 2005 this game came out, compared to games that came out in 2003 and 1999. Anyway, the characters include on Crash's side, Crash Bandicoot, Coco Bandicoot, and Crunch Bandicoot. Cortex's side includes Dr. Neo Cortex, Nina Cortex, and Engine. There are 2 new characters as well. Pasadena Possum, which is actually a pretty cool character and fits well into the Crash universe. She's helping out the owner of the park to get his ownership back. And Von Clutch, the owner of the park. No one cares about him. I want to know, where are the other main characters? I mean, there's so many Crash characters up to this point, surely there could have been more. Like on Crash's side, Polar and Purra, or on Cortex's side, Tiny Tiger and Dingodile. They are main sub-characters that deserve to be in this game. What about Dr. Entropy or Fake Crash? Oh, and that's not the worst of it. Aku Aku and Uka Uka doesn't even appear in this game. Okay, that is... They aren't even power-ups. Oh wait, I found Aku Aku. He's there. And what's even worse is that the characters don't even have different stats. You can unlock 3 different cars for each character, but that doesn't make a difference. One is for the battle mode, one is for racing, and one is for the stunt mode. But when comparing them, they're all the same. None are faster than others, none have better turning than others. It just doesn't make any sense. All the characters and the cars are the same. There's no variety and challenge, such as playing as the faster racers with lower turning, rewarding you for being better at the game, or choosing specific characters for specific tracks. The only difference between the characters is their weapons, and the differences are rubbish. The point of racing games is to have characters that have their strengths and weaknesses. Like in CTR, a character like Polar has low speed, but high turning to compensate for that. Or Dingodile, by the way is the best character, has an extremely high speed, but to make it fair he has low turning. Or you can even have characters like Crash, which is an average stat class. Here the weapons are either good or bad, and Engine has a weapon that one-shots everyone. Why? There are no strengths and weaknesses, there's just good or bad characters. That is not what a racing game should be. Something that I don't mind with the characters is skins. Get this Engine Ballerina skin for $5.99. You can purchase skins with the coins you find in the hub world, or the coins you earn for winning races. I couldn't care less for skins honestly, but there is one skin I love, and it's the Mr. T skin for Crunch.
Crash! What's the word, boy? Enough jibber jabber. Give me some coins, fool!
So when completing the first 4 hub worlds, a cutscene plays and you find out that the person who stole all the power gems is the park's mascot, Willy Wumpachix, aka the shittest fucking character in any video game I've ever played. Like, who cares about him? Honestly, where he tries to escape the park in the 5th hub world, and when you get to him, Cortex is in a spaceship thingy, and...
I hate chicken.
I must say I really love that line from Cortex. So the Bandicoots get the deed of the park and hand it to Von Clutch. At least I think that's what happened. I honestly didn't pay attention to the story, I'm sorry. So in conclusion, I was surprised going back into this game and seeing how much mistakes this game has made. And that is extremely disappointing because I loved this game when I was younger and it was one of my favorite games. And at the same time, when replaying it, I wanted all the memories and all the nostalgia to flood back to me. And it did, sort of. But this goes to show that nostalgia is not as strong as we thought. This game is extremely repetitive, and the new additions such as the platforming in the hub world and the tag team aspect with merging was executed horribly. Sure, it's fun for a bit, but that doesn't mean it's good. This is why I said this game isn't a kart racer. There's no variety with the cars, and the variety with the characters is bullshit. There's no point adding characters that are just better than other characters for the sake of them being better than other characters. The tracks are pretty boring, and the shortcuts aren't like the high risk, high reward shortcuts from the previous Crash races. And for some reason they made Crash dumber. He's a bandicoot for fuck's sake, not a mutt. And the Crash babbling and the gibberish started here. And a lot of people aren't into that, especially with the Crash of the Titans Mind of a Mutant came out. I'm not the biggest fan of the Crash babbling and gibberish, but a little bit is okay. But this I think is a bit too much. And yes, I know about the fart and the burp sounds we can make in the loading screen. Why? And you probably noticed the unique soundtrack that I've been using throughout this video. I'm sorry, but I'm not a big fan of it. It uses the same a cappella style of soundtrack that Twinsanity uses. But the thing is, Twinsanity's soundtrack wasn't actually too bad, but the Tag Team Racing soundtrack is completely forgettable. And that is a shame because CTR's soundtrack was so good and catchy, and C&K's soundtrack was so memorable. It sucks that they couldn't perform a hat trick. When I started reviewing games, I didn't think I was ever going to say this. Nevertheless though, Crash Tag Team Racing makes the bad list and gets a 3 out of 10. I want this game to be better, but unfortunately this is not the case. This game is fun for a bit and does have some cool elements such as the battle mode, all the different types of races, and that character Pasadena Possum. She is an awesome character, but CTTR isn't very good and it doesn't hold up today. And this would be the part where I say, stick around till next week where we cover such and such. But that's it for the Crash Racing Trio. I just want to say a huge thanks for all the support throughout the marathon so far. And I say so far because it isn't just the Game Talks where this marathon continues. Expect a number of Crash Team Racing nitro-fueled related videos from this. If you're a CTR fan, I highly recommend you subscribe to this channel with those notifications turned on. And remember, June 21st, CTR nitro-fueled is a big day. See you all on the track. A huge thank you to all of you who've made it to the end. And I really hope you enjoyed this video, and if you haven't, check out my videos where I review Crash Team Racing and Crash Nitro Kart. Leave a like and subscribe with those notifications turned on, that really helps me out. And if you like, check out my social media listed here. Thank you all so much, and I will talk to you before you know it. See you later.